Welcome to another episode of the Hockey Hub on 7/7, July 7th, which means a lot of the big news, a lot of the signings that were supposed to happen on the 1st and a couple of days afterwards are kind of in the dust right now. I mean, we've had time to settle. Sophia and Kasey here with you. And that's what we're going to talk about with our guests. Let's bring him in right away. Pete Blackburn on the show for like 35 minutes. I don't know how long we have you, but I think we have you for a lot of opinions. So feel free to pop off. And Pete, first of all, thanks for being here. That's what we want from you. Let's go. I mean, it's been 6 days since the Bruins made their moves. We're going to go Bruins first, then talk league-wide. But pop off, because you did pop off on your podcast. So has the emotion come down? Where are you feeling now that time has passed?
Yeah, like the emotions come down a little bit, but my opinion on the signings hasn't really changed. And ultimately, it comes down to, like, I don't think that these were bad signings in that, like, if you had told me that they were going to sign Tanner Jeannot and Michael Eyssimont and some of these other guys, I said, okay, great. But what does the contract look like? And really, like, the only one that I have a problem with is Tanner Jeannot. And I have to keep reiterating, like, I'm glad that Tanner Jeannot is a Bruin. And I think that he's going to be a good fit for this team, and he makes a lot of sense for their bottom six and the identity that they're trying to establish. I just really don't like giving 5 years and above what was the projected AAV. Like, you pick a side, like, go over term or over on the dollars, and they did both for Tanner Jeannot, and I just don't know if he's the type of player that I would get into a bidding war for when he's a bottom six, a third liner, a fourth liner, and that kind of projection. So that's the only problem that I really had with the Bruins signings.
Okay, so I think all three of us want to kind of go back and forth on this, so we're going to stick with Tanner Jeannot. I loved your opinion. I obviously listened to your opinion on your pod, which, by the way, is called What the Chaos. But I also, in life, love playing devil's advocate, and I'm very annoying for my friends because I love doing that. So first, and then Kasey's got some thoughts too, but first, I don't disagree. Like, I think your opinion's very valid, and I think a lot of people share it. But why then was there a bidding war? Like, if that's not his value, why do you think he got that?
Well, I mean, so I don't know what the numbers came in at, like, in this bidding war for Tanner Jeannot. Like, the Bruins could have cleared it by several $1 million, or we don't really know. But I think that when you look at a player like Tanner Jeannot, he's been overvalued several times in his career. Like, the trade from Tampa, or from Nashville to Tampa, is widely regarded as one of the worst and most lopsided value trades in like the last 10 years in the NHL. They gave up a first, a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth-round draft pick to go get Tanner Jeannot. And that was based off of one season in which he had 24 goals and had, like, a great year. And so I think a lot of teams are just kind of betting that he's going to revisit that sort of year or come close to it. And just, like, the edge and the toughness and the intangibles that he brings to a locker room, I think, are always held in high esteem in the NHL, especially when you look at a team like the Florida Panthers, who just won back-to-back Stanley Cups off of, like, part of their identity being so nasty and so tough to play against. A guy like Tanner Jeannot helps you become tougher to play against and nastier, for sure. But when you also look at a team like Florida, they don't build from the back end out. They don't overpay bottom six players. What they do is they identify highly skilled players who can play that way, play the nasty game up front, and then they plug in guys on the bottom six for pretty short money and, like, pretty bargain deals, and they constantly are able to evaluate these guys and plug them in without having to keep their guys by overpaying them. So, I just think that the philosophy of trying to build from the bottom six up doesn't usually work in the NHL, and it feels like that's kind of what the Bruins are doing, or at least did on July 1st.
Thank you for trudging down memory lane of the pain Tampa Bay caused themselves by trading for Tanner Jeannot, because I was there. But I will say this. I never thought Jeannot fit into Tampa Bay's system. Covering the team at the time, Tampa Bay's always been highly skilled, kind of lopsided on their physical identity throughout the years here and there. If the right system is in front of Tanner Jeannot or behind Tanner Jeannot, because I kind of focus more on the defense behind him, do you think he can actually be beneficial for the Bruins? Because when he got that 24-goal season with the Predators, they were the most physical team, one of the top physical teams in the league. They had the most fights that season. So maybe his identity won't get so locked up in the physical facet of things, depending on how the system plays out for the Bruins.
Yeah, I think that that's very possible. And I think Tanner Jeannot could be a very good Bruin. And like if he scores 20 goals, I'm happy to say that like, oh, I was wrong. The projection and the value there is right and it's correct. But like based off of what he has been for the last 3 years and not being able to reach the standard that he set for himself in that 24 goal season, like you can only work with what you've got for the past few years. And I just think that the contract and the projection doesn't align with the player right now. And so the thing about the Bruins right now is that their system is kind of unknown and their identity is kind of unknown. So this is a nice opportunity for them to establish that. And I think that that's part of the reason that they went out and got some of these players is that they know that they have to like reestablish an identity. And as far as the system goes, we'll see what Marco Sturm implements and we'll see what it looks like. But based off of what happened on July 1st, I feel like their priorities are that they want to be tougher to play against and they want to generate more opportunities in terms of shot generation. Like that's where a Victor Arvidsson comes in, and that's somebody like these lower profile AHL scorers. They just want guys who can create a bit more, and I think that that's probably the right direction. And again, I don't hate the signings. It's more just the price tag on one of them that really bothered me.
No, yeah, and you mentioned you're like, if you're going to go big, pick money or pick term, don't pick both. And in this case, you feel like he's overpaid and and signed for too long. Again, one of the devil's advocate positions that I was thinking about was like, okay, let's say the cap, we don't know exactly where it's going to be, but it is projected to keep going. And in 3 years, will that money really matter that much? Or when I'm not a math girly, but you know, when we divide it, is it really going to be that impactful as opposed to it staying at where it was? Like now, if we're looking at the cap long term, does that money still bother you?
Yeah, because I think that it's a dangerous game to play to say, well, like the cap's going up and, you know, 3 point whatever it is not that much money in the grand scheme of things. And yeah, it's a small percentage. And it's not like that contract is going to be an albatross that really, really like handicaps your team. But where it does come in is if you make those mistakes a few times over, they compound, and then they do prevent the things that you can do down the line. Like say there's a free agent in 3 years and Tanner Jeannot's still on the books and he's a fourth liner making $3.5 million. Well, that's a contract that you're probably going to wish that you didn't have, and it might prevent you or make it more difficult from, you know, executing a move that would really, really make you a better team. And, you know, I guess the debate there is like, well, what Tanner Jeannot is going to bring to this team in terms of identity and culture, like, is that going to make up for what is considered an overpayment for a bottom six player? Perhaps, but like, I don't like excusing overpayments because the cap's going up or because it's just a bottom six role, so it's not that large of a number that is unpalatable. These mistakes do all add up, and they can catch up with you at some point.
I'll make a final point about this signing, and then if Kasey has something, we can do that or we'll move on. But you mentioned culture and work ethic and all that, and it's so funny because when it's good and when you have it, you definitely appreciate it. Like, it's all we've been hearing with the Boston Bruins in that Chara Bergeron era, Marshy included, XYZ, right? It's all we've been hearing about. But I don't want to say it's taken for granted, but because it's like an intangible, it's hard to put a money value on it. Like goals, there's a money value. Assists, there's a money value. Save percentage, money value. But culture, not really. But working with the Leafs, Pete, and which I did for like 15 years, like it was the worst, and capital W. Like I fell out of love with hockey. It was the worst, and I feel like the Leafs were trying to pay anything, throw anything at changing the culture, getting Brendan Shanahan in. And so if Tanner Jeannot, and I don't know if he's going to be the X factor, I know that it's going to be like whatever the guys call it. It's cliche, but like a group effort or whatever they say. But if he is an X factor, I mean, I think it's worth the money, except we don't know that. Like, we'll find out as, you know, reporters go in the room and we start talking to guys, we start seeing that. Apparently, the management and Marco Sturm believe that it could be an X factor. He could be, and that's going to bring a lot to a team that all of a sudden, within a year, that culture kind of dwindled a little bit, or it was dwindling. So let's say he doesn't contribute offensively that much, but the culture really turns around and we find out he's like one of the best room guys. Then is it worth it, or you still think it's a little overpaid?
Well, my follow-up question to that would be, how many wins do they have? Because I think that like you're trying to establish a team that can win some hockey games. And when it comes to the culture conversation, I always kind of come back to culture creates winning, but winning creates culture as well. And so like if you're not winning games, it could be the best guy in the room, but it's not going to create a culture that you want, because everybody's going to be frustrated and nobody wants a culture attached to a losing team. And so like for a player like Tanner Jeannot, if he goes to a team that's on the precipice of knocking on the door and he really takes them that extra step, and they were already a winning hockey team and he just kind of elevates that a little bit, then yeah, absolutely. He's a guy who can kind of unlock something in a group. Do I think that he's going to unlock something in this Boston group that has so many holes still? I don't know. But maybe he takes them a few steps in the right direction, and then at some point down the line, they fill those other holes. We'll see.
Final thought, and I got to get Kasey in here too, but I agree with you. The only thing about the wins, if you are losing and you're bringing in younger guys, you want a leader like Nick Foligno with Chicago that's going to be like, we're going to, instead of it getting toxic because you're losing all the time, of like teaching them how to manage that and it not like roll into next season. But like, you're right, the wins make a big difference. I'm done on the Jeannot stuff. Sorry, Kasey, do you have anything left to say, or are we moving on?
Well, no, because I love how you mentioned that like culture and winning, they're not always kind of simultaneous to one another. But I want your opinion on the fact of pivoting from culture to connection. Do you think that this team has some hope because of all of the connectivity between Tanner Jeannot and Mikey Jeannot playing together in Tampa Bay on the same line and on different lines? Then you've got Jeannot and Arvidsson both kind of coming out of the Nashville system years ago, and then Arvidsson, who once played for Marco Sturm, learned from him. So can the connectivity kind of help this team find an identity a little bit faster, or is that just over-optimism?
No, I think there's definitely value in that. Like, especially when you look at the Bruins last year and how a lot of those games looked. How many times were we watching games saying, man, there's just no chemistry. They look so disjointed. There's no real like team.
They couldn't read each other for anything.
Exactly. Like there's no real chemistry on the ice last year for this team, which was shocking. And maybe bringing in a bunch of new guys is not going to solve that, but maybe like that familiarity that some of these guys have with each other and have in different systems can bring that here and know how to kind of implement it in a way that's just, you know, more conducive to palatable, watchable hockey, because last year it was so tough to watch. So, you know, I think that the goal, at least at the very minimum, was to get more NHL ready guys on this roster heading into next year. They definitely did that. I just don't know how much they overall improved with those July 1 signings.
True. Now kind of sticking with the over-optimism for a second, were there any signings that you were like, okay, I like this regardless of contract or anything else, something that made sense for the step forward for the Bruins?
Yeah, so Matej Blumel, I've heard really, really good things about what he's been able to do at the AHL level. Like, he was an AHL star and just scored a ton. And you took a really low-risk flyer on a guy like that, especially when you really need scoring. I like that kind of flyer on a player like that. You know, I've heard very, very exciting things from people who are not Bruins fans who have said, man, you might have struck something there. And so that excites me. And like, if it doesn't work out, then whatever. It's a 1-year deal. And so you can reassess a year from now. I also I don't have any sort of problem with the Corrali and AC Mont signings, because at the very least, like, if this team's not in contention midway through the year, those are flippable assets at the deadline that will have a little extra value if you trade them this season, because they've got a year of control beyond this season. So like, very, very low risk signings in that regard. Again, it just goes back to the only one that I really didn't like was Jeannot.
No, fair. And like you said, some low-risk signings. We'll see, you know, like you said, if they're flippable at the deadline and if they stay on and the contracts aren't too much. Did you buy, you know, Don Sweeney was saying they're creating internal competition, which is something they've always tried to do, fighting for roster spots, especially in the bottom 6. Like, do you buy into the fact that these guys are going to be fighting for jobs and that's going to bring out the best in them constantly? There's constantly going to be that person who's a healthy scratch and can threaten the position?
Yeah, maybe. But my problem with that would be that they're fighting for spots that are probably above their pay grade anyway. So like even if they win that spot, they still might be playing above their punching weight. And so like that's the problem with having an overabundance of bottom six players, especially when your biggest need heading into this offseason was top six scoring. Like they have just not had enough play drivers and not enough finishers beyond David Pastrnak in that first line. And I mean, Victor Arvidsson has had a really respectable NHL career and he generates a lot in terms of shots, but like he's not going to tilt the scales for you. And at this point, I think playing in a top six role is probably above his punching weight. And so that to me is, I just think that when I look at the rest of the roster beyond the first line, there's just a lot of guys who are probably playing a line or two above where they should be.
Okay, no, I love that read for sure. And it's funny, in this next block, we wanted to kind of go NHL big picture, but I think I have a couple more Bruins questions for you. But Pete, we're going to send it to commercial break. Pete Blackburn joins us on the Hockey Hub. We're going to be right back to talk about the Bruins moves at free agency and what the future could look like, and more stuff league-wide. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back into the Hockey Hub. Kasey, Sophia, Pete Blackburn, joining us here on the Hockey Hub. We were just chatting about some of the free agency grabs, but you made a great point to mention guys kind of competing above their pay grade or below their pay grade, which brings me to the question of what should this bottom six look like? Because the projected lines now no longer have Jeannot, who was just signed to the Bruins, not even in the mix. You see Beecher kind of being pushed out to left wing. You see Corrali, who came back at center on that fourth line. But I want to know your opinion on like what would be best, or at least to you, kind of heading in to compete in this upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad answer, but I don't know. I don't know. And they have so many guys who profile as bottom sixers that, like, you don't really know what you're going to get from them. You don't know how they're going to fit in. You also don't know if Don Sweeney and Cam Neely are done. Like, they have such a surplus of bottom six players, and the trade market is reportedly pretty robust in terms of people looking around and shopping guys. So, like, I don't know how many of those guys are actually going to be in training camp and, who else might be in the mix. So that part is interesting to me. And it does feel like because they did go out and splurge on so many bottom six guys that like there could be a move coming down the line. And so, again, it's a bad answer. I don't know, but we'll see. And I also, part of it is like, I don't know what Marco Sturm's system is going to look like heading into this year. So like that may elevate certain guys more than others as well.
Training camp isn't always the most interesting thing to cover as a reporter, or it is, but like you're kind of looking towards the season already. You're like, okay, what's going to happen? There are some obvious answers. This one's going to be really interesting. Like, I'm very excited for training camp and even preseason, dare I say, excited about that. But I am. It's going to be really different. And Don Sweeney made a point that he needs it to be competitive and good and high-paced and hard off the top. So the team needs to do that. We'll see what Marco Sturm has. On that note, Pete, we need more from Jeremy Swayman, who we have. We need more from Elias Lindholm, from Nikita Zadorov. We need, obviously, Hampus Lindholm to be healthy and Charlie McAvoy to be healthy. So that's, I think, 5, 6 guys that can be and should be better than they were last season. How much better do they need to be for the Bruins to actually be competitive this year? Because like I said, I mentioned 6 pretty big names that if they're rolling, this is a completely different team. We just forgot that they weren't rolling, that they were struggling. It's not a guarantee. And we don't even know if Morgan Geeky's going to keep up his pace, but we're assuming that he will. But if those 5 are even 50% better, are you cool with that, or do we need more?
Well, I think the X factor is really the back end and the guys that you mentioned there. Like if Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy are healthy, last year probably looks significantly different than it actually did. And I think a big part of that too is those guys being healthy probably unlock a better Nikita Zadorov, because Zadorov had to play tougher minutes than than he was capable of playing. And he had a really bad year last year. I mean, no mistakes about it. And it's a tough look on the first year of a new contract. But I think Zadorov can be much better, especially in safer minutes, potentially on a third pair in which he's comfortable. And like, it felt like Henri Jokiharju was a good partner for him at the tail end of last year. So fingers crossed that all works out. Obviously, Jeremy Swayman needs to be much better. And I have a little bit more faith that the stability heading into this season versus last year will help him get there. So if your blue line is a lot better and your defensive structure is a lot better and your goaltending is a lot better, you're going to win more hockey games. But I still have a lot of concerns about the forward group, especially, like, are you banking on David Pastrnak to have another MVP caliber season? And, like, make no mistake about it, if the Bruins were a playoff team last year, David Pastrnak probably would have been a Hart finalist. That's how good he was. And, like, are you going to get the same sort of year from Morgan Geekie on his opposite wing based off of the success and the play driving skill of David Pastrnak? Like, these are all things that I think have to be answered this season, but the forward group is really where most of my problems lie with this team, because I do have some faith that the back end and the goaltending is going to bounce back.
All right, so just to unpack your problems a little further, because I'm sure a lot of fans are right there with you. We know what the expectation is for the big names, but then we also know about the guys who have kind of bounced around from getting that NHL opportunity to the AHL, Patra being one of the names that come to mind the most. Like, when do you think, or how much do you think these younger guys should start getting involved in this lineup so that they can solidify how helpful they could or could not be? Because you can't replace NHL reps.
Right, and I think that you're probably not looking at being a real serious contender this year by any means. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that that's the projection for this team. This is a year to find out who you have and like where those guys are heading. And so like for a Matthew Poitras, like you find out whether he's a guy that you can rely on and is going to figure into your bigger picture plans. And a guy like Fraser Minton, like a full season in Boston, finding out what he can become here, like. These are good learning opportunities about your players, and for the players, they're good opportunity moments to kind of solidify your role with this team moving forward as they look to shape an identity and kind of bridge to the next era. So in that sense, it's very exciting, but also like there's a lot of concern if you're a fan and you're looking at this roster and saying, oh boy, like this could go strongly in one direction, strongly in another. And like, especially with a guy like Poitras, like a guy who you had at one point like a lot of faith in really figuring in and being an exciting young piece of this team, maybe you start finding out that's not true. So that's going to be an exciting part of the season as a fan, is finding out like what you have. Yeah,
I remember those preseason games where Poitras was in, and then he obviously cracked the lineup because of what he did in preseason, where we were like, okay, and we were so excited, and then we're waiting, and I'm sure he is too. What about Fabian Lysell? We didn't mention him in that, and I just looked it up, 12 games, 3 points, and he obviously got a consistent stretch finally, because that was the chatter, like called up for one game and then sent down. So finally gets his consistent stretch after trade deadline and when we knew the Bruins were out of it. What was your read on him, and do you have any faith on him being an impactful player next season if he cracks the lineup?
Yeah, I feel like we're coming to the end of the line. Like, if you're going to see something from Fabian Lysell, you got to see it this year, and you got to see it in the front half of this year, because, you know, he's going to lose a spot if he doesn't produce. And so, yeah, I think that, like, when you look at the tail end of last year, there were guys who emerged and looked pretty good in that they were in an NHL spot and did some good things. But when you're talking about being a winning team and being, the team that you want to be, will Fabian Lysell have that spot and have that opportunity to showcase a few good things if your roster is better? The answer is probably not. And I think at some point you really have to seize that opportunity and make the decision impossible to move him around and send him back to the AHL. I don't know how much faith I have in that. But at some point this year, we're going to see at least a few guys emerge as, surprising breakouts. So maybe he's one of them. But at this point, I feel like my patience with Fabian Lysell has not been rewarded at a lot of different points.
Well, you know, Pete, anyone that follows your social media, you do well in taking us on the emotional roller coaster that is being a hockey fan and let alone a Bruins fan. I got to get your take, though. Bruins college, James Higgins, we're trying to figure out, does he go back? Does he come up? Is it the perfect year to just figure it out with him being in the lineup? What's your take on it? What's best for Higgins as well as this Bruins roster?
Yeah, so like as much as I would like to see James Higgins with the Bruins this year, like it would be a really exciting element added to what, you know, probably isn't going to be the most successful season. I think it's probably best for James Higgins and the Bruins that he returns to Boston College because, you know, he's going to have an opportunity to kind of be closer to the ceiling that he set for himself in the U.S. development program. And like that was an astronomically high season. And like he had a pretty good year at BC last year, like not terrible. And I feel like the sky is falling with James Higgins because he fell in the draft and wasn't like the best player in the country at BC. Well, he has an opportunity to kind of rediscover some of that confidence and play with more consistency and be like a top line player at BC. Whereas if he heads to the NHL, like I worry that his confidence might be shaken if he has some growing pains or if he has to play in a smaller role. Like, if you want him to be a franchise center for you, allow him to be a franchise center at a lower level and kind of rediscover that game before heading to the NHL, where he's going to have those growing pains and those that adjustment period. And like the Bruins are not going to make or break this season with or without James Higgins. So I'm more of the mind that like just let him kind of grow into it and progress at a natural pace rather than trying to force it.
Yeah, I'm so torn because originally when he was drafted, I think someone asked a question on the Zoom, like, are you going to go to college or are you going to play with the Bruins? And we talked about it on the show, and we're like, well, first of all, it's not really his choice. But then I was thinking about it, like, obvious answer is going to college. It's not really the obvious answer, but I do lean in for all the reasons in the direction you're going in. But something you brought up was confidence. And if a player, you know, who has a lot of confidence or is at a certain level in a different league, like AHL or college, and then they go to the NHL and it's like a bit of a reality check. Do you feel like the personality has a lot to do with it? So maybe a shyer, more quiet, humble, out of the spotlight kid might be like, oh my God, like I'm terrible, like, and get it in their head and shake their confidence. Whereas like a cocky player might feel a little differently. Do you think that has anything to do with it? Or would you even like assess that if you were management to see how they would handle that adversity?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Like, there's a human element to all of this, and some guys are just better prepared to have like this unshakable confidence in themselves. And like for a guy like James Higgins, like he had such high standards that were set at the U.S. development program, where like he was projected to be the #1 pick, and when things don't trend in that direction or continue trending in that direction in his first year at BC, then like I wouldn't doubt it if there was him questioning himself, or I'm not saying that he's like ruined his own game, but as a human and as a young kid, I don't blame anybody if that gets to you and if that kind of hinders your confidence in yourself. So I think that you want to put a young kid in the best position possible to have that confidence and to reestablish the faith that they have in themselves. So, yeah, I mean, like managing personalities is a big part of sports. It's not just numbers on a page. It's not just wins and losses. And like when you are making a massive investment in a kid with like a 7th overall pick, you want to protect the asset and you want to protect the projection and the path to being the best player he can be for your franchise. And I think that they're going to have to answer those questions and decide what the best choice is for James Higgins heading into this year. What I will say is I like the fact that he's not saying like that it seems like he wants to be a Bruin and he wants to be a Bruin soon. And I like that. I like that confidence. I like that hunger, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best thing for him.
No, me too. And I completely agree that managing personalities, especially after spending so much time in different locker rooms, I'm like, this is more than people maybe make it out to be. I think last Bruins one, and then Kasey's going to take us league-wide. But I just wanted your thoughts on Jeremy Swayman and the Korpisalo. Obviously, tandem, obviously Sway with the money, with what they gave him, he's number one, and they're going to give him a chance to make sure that he plays up to his contract. So in that being said, because you're paying him that much and you're going to keep putting him in there, is Korpisalo really a good push? Or would any goalie really be a good push for someone who's got a contract like that? And do you think there's going to be some internal competition in a healthy way, in a way we want to see, between these two? And can Korpi kind of make him better? And what did you think of Korpisalo as kind of like a backup, or do you want to see him more as a 1B?
I think the internal competition is good, especially for goaltenders and especially for Jeremy Swayman, because like talking to Jeremy Swayman over the past few years, like he loved the internal competition that he had with Linus Ullmark, and I think that it elevated both of those guys. And they showed that like you can have a good relationship between teammates who are also competitors and vying for the same net. And you can make the argument that you don't want your $8 million goaltender to need the competition to kind of elevate his game. Like if you're being paid like that, you're the number one. Like that's just it is what it is. And I think that's all fair, but I also think that like there is an element of just being pushed every day and having to lock in every day and it bringing out the best in you as a competitor. What I will say is for Joonas Korpisalo, like I think the Bruins would be silly not to explore what the market is for Joonas Korpisalo, given that Jeremy Swayman is being paid like a number one, and number two, Joonas Korpisalo seemed to have an issue with his workload last year and not getting more opportunity. And given how bleak the goalie market is this offseason, there are teams that need goaltending help. And a guy like Korpisalo and his contract and sort of his performance over the past several years, he might have elevated value beyond what he should have on market. So I would look at it, and if he wants more opportunity, he may welcome a trade or something like that. And if there was a lot of interest in Michael DiPietro this offseason, and the Bruins decided to keep him. So, if they want to run him and give him an opportunity as their backup, then I wouldn't kick that out of bed either. I think there are good options here for the goaltending situation one way or another.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are kind of thinking that you can shop Korpisalo. I know teams would be desperate to have a guy like him in their net, but I got to get your opinion on winners and losers across the board, because some people talk about this kind of being a really weak free agency. There was two names that really took off fiery between Ehlers as well as Besser. So what did you make of like the teams that did the best with the market that just broke out on July 1st?
So I love the Carolina Hurricanes offseason.
Really?
And yeah, I did. And I look at three big pillars of their offseason, and it was re-signing Logan Stankoven or giving him an extension that is probably going to be one of the most valuable and underpaid contracts in the league over the next 8 years. I just really love what he brings to that system. He's a perfect Carolina Hurricane, and the value, he's being paid like a bottom six player, and he's not going to be that for that team. So, I really like that deal. The K'Andre Miller trade, I think that they overpaid a little bit. Like, it was a lot to give up for K'Andre Miller, but because it's Carolina and how successful they've been at identifying defensemen who can fit into their system and really thrive, plus the fact that he's going to be playing behind Jacob Slavin and doesn't have to be a true number one on the blue line, I think K'Andre Miller is going to be awesome in Carolina. And then the Nick Ehlers signing, I really, really liked, and I think that he's going to be a great fit there as well. And they got just another guy who can provide some offensive firepower. So really like Carolina, especially for a team that's knocking on the door. I feel like they had a really great offseason.
Did you feel like the Bruins should have, I mean, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but would you have liked Ehlers with the Bruins?
Definitely. He was my number one target for them this offseason. I wanted to see them go after him. He fits the profile of what they need in terms of that top six of explosiveness and just kind of what he brings in a rush game and shot generation. Like, would have been such a good fit. But again, like, he was a premier winger on this market, and there's a lot of teams that need those kinds of players, and he gets his pick of the crop. And so the Bruins are in a place right now where they might not be able to have the sales pitch that a team like the Carolina Hurricanes can in free agency.
A team that seemed to have the perfect sales pitch and money being Utah Mammoths. I'm still getting used to that part. Too much hype around them, or do you think that we're going to see them take that next step?
I think it's very possible that they take that next step, and I like their offseason as well. I know that they wanted to do some bigger things this offseason that they weren't able to do. So we'll see if they're done, honestly. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if there was still a move or two coming down the line for Utah, but they definitely seem poised to be one of those teams this year that can make the next step, and they've got a ton of young talent there. And I just look at them being one of those teams that could be ready to establish themselves as a playoff team this year.
Pete, I think we're going to let you go soon, but I just wanted to move away from hockey. Just talk about, like, this is our off season too. It's so nice to have you on. We could have kept going about topics because it's fresh, right? Free agency. Other than a couple of trades that we might see, and I liked your point about the Bruins maybe not being done, that we might see in the summer. What the hell are you guys going to talk about on the show in the summer? Like, what do you do in the summer? Do you guys take a pause, or are you just like, how do you fill the time? Give us ideas, because we're going to be stretching over the next couple weeks over here.
Yeah, we scale back during the summer. Like last year, we did an episode or two per week rather than daily, and this year it's probably going to be a bit of the same. And honestly, like, the summer is an opportunity to kind of just recharge the batteries, and maybe like, I've been taking, this is so stupid and nerdy, but like, I've been taking YouTube workshop classes to help kind of grow the brand on YouTube and find out what works, just because it's like this like really weird science that I'm not totally familiar with right now. So I'm just trying to, like a player, just try to learn, better yourself, shape your game, recharge, get healthy for the season, and then start fresh with a full tank in September. So that's kind of my mindset right now.
Okay,
we're gonna pull a page from that.
Yeah,
book.
we got to pull a page. We got to talk to our bosses and just be like, you guys want us to do a hockey show in the dead of summer. Hopefully we have some news. If not, we'll be talking about my little, I don't know, side hustles, which, because of your fantastic guest, and I forget her name, but writer for The Athletic who sews. Can you give me her name?
Oh, Shayna Goldman.
Yes. I was Googling sewing lessons in Boston this morning. I was like, wow. I want to sew. I want to make some stuff. I mean, she really sold it, and got to do some with your hands. So I think we're going to be talking about sewing, Kasey, a little later on in the summer. But Pete, you're always such a treat. I think last time I said thanks for having us on. I'll say it again. Thanks for gracing us. Thanks for having us on in your Zoom, in your place. But yeah, dude, thanks for being here. We're going to pay some more bills, and I'm sure we'll talk to you throughout the summer. All right?
Sounds
Take
good.
care.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye. Welcome back to the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Kasey here with you. We just had Pete Blackburn on. He's such a treat, isn't he?
Yeah, I love getting his perspective, but the humor is always a great ad. So.
The humor is a great ad. He has to stay a little censored on NESN, because we are on NESN. But What the Chaos is his podcast, and he's hilarious on Twitter. We're moving on to development camp, which ended. It was 4 days last week. It was a lot of fun for the players, and really highlights some things for them of how to really prepare in the NHL. Someone, Kasey, who I believe it was his 5th development camp, okay? And he said it to me in a way that he was like, it's my 5th, a little bit discouraged. And I was like, dude, it's okay. That's good. That makes you better. You're still young. You're still 22 years old, and plays at BC. And there's just, take it and see what happens. And I know he's just dying to take that next step. But we learned a little bit more about Andre Gasseau. So we'll play that for you, and we'll be back after that. Andre Gasseau with us on NESN. You're familiar to development camp. Right. What do you get every year that you come?
I think you just learn, something new each time. You make new friends. There's obviously different guest coaches. So I think just the whole learning process itself, it's always something new. And that's just something I always look forward to.
Yeah, and we were just chatting about the time, like where you spend a lot of your time, you said, between home, California, and Boston. How have you learned to like the city of Boston?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in North Dakota, I've been in Minnesota, I've been in Michigan, so being in Boston definitely is a little bit of a change, but it's pretty similar to California just in terms of like traffic and little suburban areas and such like that. But yeah, I like it a lot. I spent a lot of time at BC and downtown, so I get to learn a lot.
Nice. Well, with development camp, usually the staff and crew, they have a former player or current player come and talk to the guys to help motivate them. You don't have to go through all of them, but was there anyone that you were like, whoa, impressed with learning from or talking to, and any messages or anything you've learned over the past couple of years that have like stuck with you?
Yeah, I think Chara and Bergie actually talked to us a couple development camps ago, and just the whole message of leading together and making sure everyone's on the same page, coming in, and the new guys as well. Just something that can resonate with me, and with just being a leader and making sure that everyone's included and everyone feels welcome. So
Yeah, no, and that's something you don't just stick to hockey. You can take it anywhere in life, obviously, right? Okay, I like to. With Dean Letourneau, we were asking some sillier ones. You saw the end of that one? Yeah. Yeah, we were getting into it. Well, who is or was like one of the most famous texts that you ever got or calls? Anyone that you were like, oh, damn, I heard from this person?
yeah, I mean, Bergeron reached out to me after I was drafted. So
In French?
No, just in English.
Okay.
But I thought that was really cool, just the person he is, and obviously the great career he's had. So it was really, really touching to get a message from him.
Yeah, no, classy guy, and obviously someone with that leadership. Very cool to hear from.
Yeah.
What about music-wise? What do you kind of got going on right now?
Probably the same as Dean, just a little bit of country, a little bit of rap. Nothing too crazy. I like EDM as well, so it switches things up a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So he said not a lot of people like rap, but you're in that category that appreciates the beauty of rap.
Yeah, I like rap. Probably not what he listens to, but I do like rap.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, other than training, what kind of things do you try to do in your summertime?
I would say I'm getting more into golf.
Okay.
I would say playing video games, being outside. I like to hike. Really think anything outdoors, and then spend time with friends and family.
Nice.
So.
So we were talking about him trying to keep or put on weight because he's trying to grow. Where are you in the weight thing? Are you constantly trying to maintain it, or do you feel happy with where you are in your weight?
Yeah, I'm totally happy. I don't see a problem with losing or gaining. I think it comes pretty easy for me. So, yeah, I would say for the most part, I'm really happy.
You have a bit of a jiu-jitsu background, right? I'm getting the correct martial arts,
Yes,
right? Okay,
yes.
so a bit of a jiu-jitsu background. I know so many people. I used to cover UFC actually, so learned a lot about martial arts. So much discipline. There's so much that goes into it. How did that start? And well, I'll just start there. How did that start?
Well, me and my dad are actually driving back from practice, and we cut into a parking lot, and there's like a little dojo right there, and he just pointed it out and like thought it would be a great idea for me. And the next day, I'm signed up and I'm going to classes. So that stuck with me for a long time, and I'm super grateful for it.
What's a dojo?
Just like the studio, like where you train, and yeah, I guess just building or whatever.
Okay.
So.
And that gave you what physically? Because mentally, I'm sure it taught you a lot of discipline, but physically, like I'm sure core strength, like what? Like what did that give you?
Yeah, just I guess like the mentality aspect of it. Like you learn a lot, and you're humbled a ton, and the whole learning process. Like you're not going to get it within a week. Like you have to stay at it with anything else. So it definitely was a process, and it's something that I'll use for the rest of my life.
Do you enjoy watching mixed martial arts on television?
Yeah, I think it's one of the craziest sports, but definitely one of the most entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. And you probably have such a respect for it that now that you've done it.
Absolutely. I mean, they train their lives for that, and for me, that's mostly just a summer thing. But yeah, those guys they really do a lot for that. So
you've slowed down a little bit because you're spending more time focusing on hockey. Is that right? Like you've stepped away from jiu-jitsu a little bit?
yeah, just a little bit. I hope to get back into it soon, but definitely just with my training and stuff with hockey, I think it's taken a little more priority. So I think I'll get more into it as I get a little bit older, but definitely right now it's more hockey specific training.
Okay, awesome. And finally, what are you hoping to get out of this camp and show everyone who's watching, not necessarily the media, but I mean the team, the staff? What are you hoping to show them?
Yeah, I think just in general, my skating, I think that's been a huge knack for me. And I think that's something that I've gotten a little bit better at over the last couple of months, and that's something I'm going to get better at as well. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me, just moving forward, and obviously the little things that come with that. So.
Okay, awesome. Bon chance, merci, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Alrighty, trying to have a little bit of fun there. I wanted them to edit that down. They
you
kept the whole
speak
thing.
French, Sophia?
Yes, I do.
Hit us. Give me a line.
Well, you're gonna have to tell me what to say, and then I could say it.
Tell me how much you enjoyed covering Dev Camp.
J'ai vraiment aimé aller à Dev Camp, parler avec les gens. I just said speaking with the guys.
Everybody
actually.
loves you more. Okay.
Well,
we love it.
when Patrice was around, I used to always speak to him in French. But anyway, I'll
Yeah, Canadian French and then French. Very different.
find another way to practice it. Yes. But yeah, no, I mean, Gasseau having a little bit of fun. He was talking a little bit about his fighting experience, which he doesn't do that jiu-jitsu, which he doesn't do that much anymore. But totally, preps the body in a totally different way. Like I said, it's his 5th camp. We'll see what he can do in training camp and if he can crack the lineup, another BC kid. But this is what development camp is all about, for the guys to get stuff out of it, for the staff to see what they have. And, we've heard a million stories around the league of just because you don't make it after the first or 2 years doesn't mean it's not in your future, right?
Right, 100%. I mean, everyone's development journey is different. And I think what I love, especially about that interview, is you don't want to be defeated, but I think year by year you kind of start to find different facets to do off-season wise or add to your training regimens, and you never know what's going to actually take your game to the next level or make you stand out down the line. So it's always a long game in hockey. All of these guys have such unique journeys, and I'd love to see Gasseau in a Bruins sweater eventually. I feel like he can add something to this lineup, and I've said it a number of times. I think the Bruins are in such a unique spot, especially for young guys, to kind of have more of an opportunity looking at big picture of 3 and 5 years of where this club will go and how things will develop. So he doesn't need to lose hope. I think that there's a lot to look forward to coming up here.
You found a funny, I don't know if you found it in the sense that you were digging through
saw
it. You saw it.
I'm
didn't
not a
see
doom
it.
scroller, by the way. I don't do the doom scrolling.
I doom scroll.
But it popped up, yeah, and it gave me a good laugh. My only thing to tell everybody is watch James Hagan's face as close as possible.
Okay, so this is a prank video, right? By the Boston Bruins.
Your first time seeing it.
My first time seeing it. So let's watch it together and then we can react.
You guys can just sit.
How's it going?
We're working with hockey's media interns this summer. Petey actually landed us a meeting with the president. We're really excited about this, guys. What was the date of it? August 30th, Fordham for the first BC football game. Yeah, you guys will be on the front lines. Marching band. No, it's just you guys. Yeah. No, it's just going to be them at the front. The coach asked if we could get some hip height measurements. Yeah. What's a little... Yeah, I want to see your peak height. What's that doing? Is someone doing the baton too, Randy?
We're doing it. We got.
What do you want? The higher the better. Next. Yep. Higher the better.
Does that mean I'm one of the pros?
Yep. Your best form. Oh. All right. We're gonna have to note that. Yeah. All right. Maybe we'll just do a quick run through, like a quick march. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Fans, so you guys might have to sold out stadium when you do this. And you'll just
We go like right, left. Go right and then left. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty good. So
You have to be in sync, right?
1, 2, 3,
I need someone to come with me.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there's a lot to work on, but we really appreciate you guys are all questions.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is this actually like real or is this
Yeah.
Like he plays the piano and stuff, so.
Oh, we need a request for like a.
you get more
It's not necessary.
now you're the staff, like the cane?
Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Is this recording?
That's a joke, right?
If I see that on a TikTok.
Wait, so did they reveal that was a prank?
I think they told them eventually, but not on that video, because the guys are like, if I see this on TikTok, or I'm like, yeah, you're already viral, dude. Like, it's all over TikTok.
No, so good. I love the internal jokes that they have. If I was one of those girls, I don't know how I would have kept a straight face.
There's no way.
Yeah.
They deserve an ace just for being so serious about it. When they started marching to show the guys how to do it, I lost it, because that's where I would have completely had no composure.
Yeah, but also, if you're a young kid who's trying to crack the Bruins lineup, you're like, I'll march. What do you want? I'll wear a hat. I'll play
do
the drums.
anything. Yeah, exactly.
I'll do a flip and do the baton. Okay, cool. Check.
My other favorite thing, though, is when Higgins is like, William plays piano, and Will's face was like, keep me out of this, dude.
I think Higgins was kind of like, at first he's like, he did one of these with his hair, and then by the end I think he was like, I'm pumped, let's go.
Right.
So now I feel like they got to do this. Like, I'd be disappointed if we didn't do that, if we didn't see it.
I know. Let's push for BC to make sure that they still at least have to come out and try their marching skills a little bit. That was great.
The Bruins do have some good behind-the-scenes pranks. They did, which is so funny because when Patrice Bergeron was being named captain, it was very obvious that it was going to go to him, but they named Brad Marchand as the captain as a joke internally. Like, Cam Neely was like in the room. He was like, all right, it's time to name our next captain. Big round of applause for Brad Marchand. And like the room kind of was like, wait, what? But they knew, they knew. And funnily enough, not that, I think because Patrice was there, it was just so like, obviously it's not him. And then funnily enough, Brad Marchand was the captain to follow Patrice Bergeron. So like, hardly a prank. But anyway, they do these kind of things, and I love that. That's part of culture too.
I love that. I mean, what better way to bond as a team? Because now they'll have this to look back on, and I'm sure they'll practice their marches in their own time.
If I see them in training camp, I'm gonna do one of these around
Approach
them.
them
just,
like that with the mic.
Yeah, and just see. They might forget. Like, if they didn't actually go on the field that way, they might forget. But anyway, good stuff. I'm glad you found it. Kasey, we got one more break, and we'll be right back after this to wrap up the show. Welcome back to the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Kasey here with you. We are wrapping up the show, but we do have to end on a sad note. We just want to give our respects to Lyndon Byers and the family of Lyndon Byers, who Byers passed away on Friday at the age of 61. He played 9 seasons with the Boston Bruins. Kasey, we didn't know him personally, but you heard a little bit about him.
I did. Our Bruins trivia guys in the bullpen were just letting me know what an enforcer he was, and he was a presence that was always called up when they needed the muscle to come in, and just to think of the identity of original 6 teams and those guys that have made an impact, and it was great to learn about the impact that he made for the Bruins.
No, it definitely was, and the Bruins keep their family, whether you played for 1 game or 9 seasons, very close, and everyone made an impact. So again, our thoughts and prayers to the family of Lyndon Byers. We'll just give you a little bit of his resume. He was selected by the Boston Bruins in the 2nd round, number 39. That was in the 1982 NHL draft. He had 71 points, 28 goals, 43 assists, and 1,081 penalty minutes in 279 games with Boston and the San Jose Sharks. And he also had 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists, and 37 Stanley Cup playoff games. I also have a statement for you guys, and I'm going to read it here. The Boston Bruins are deeply saddened by the passing of Lyndon Byers. Lyndon was a fan favorite across his 9 seasons in the black and gold, thanks to his rugged, rough, and tumble style, and was a key cog on the Bees teams that made trips to the Stanley Cup final in 1988 and 1990. Lyndon, I'm going to skip a little bit here. Lyndon became a true Bostonian, and we will miss him dearly. He is forever a part of our Bruins family. Our thoughts are with his wife, Annie, and son, Will, during this very difficult time. Lyndon Byers was 61.